We're here today to talk about, I think, one of the most important things in general, which is wine. A few days ago, in Megillat Eicha, we read a pasuk about a child child's hungry, and the child's asking his mother, "Ayei dagan v'yain." It's not because this child is an alcoholic; it's because yain. It's sort of the ultimate thing that we drink, and so today I want to talk a little bit about Tu B'Av. Tu B'Av is a huge date for wine, for grapes. I don't know if you know off the top of your head why exactly, but we can circle back to that. So Yaakov knows. And I also want to talk about some practical things pertaining to grape cultivation and wine production, as well as Parashat Shavua, Geulah, Rav Bar-Hayim, and I want to do it within about 8 minutes or so.
Go for it.
So, wine is not just one of the most important things that we drink. Obviously, it holds tremendous significance for us in terms of mitzvot. And I would argue that wine is in a philosophical sense, in a Torah sense, in a midrashic sense, nothing less than a stand-in for the pinnacle of the creation of the world. On Shabbat, when we reenact, in a sense, different things that Kadosh Baruch Hu did in the creation of the world, we make light, we mevarchim, we do havdalah, we eat something, we make bread from dust and then kill it essentially, and we drink wine. So among all of these things, wine represents, I think, the creation of the human being, the creation of something that is alive, imperfect, but always improving and always unique. And I think this alludes a little bit to what Rav Ziskin said as well. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, he was not looking for perfection because he had that already. Dozens of midrashim in Sefer Bereshit talk about the fact that he was looking for perfecting, right? The fact that he created man means that he had to forgo perfection of the world, but instead he preferred the constant work of perfecting the world, which eventually leads to Geulah. So I wanted to share a particular angle on Geulah, which I hope is somewhat original, from Midrash. And the Midrash is on a pasuk from Shir HaShirim. So the pasuk is Ine הסתיו עבר והגשם הלך לו, הניצנים נראו בארץ, עת הזמיר הגיע, כל הטור נשמע בארצנו. It says, קומי יפתי רעייתי ולכי לך. So Chazal really pick up on the fact that this pasuk is really talking about Geulah. And they note this in multiple places. But I wanted to first relate to an interesting aspect of the pasuk. Whenever you see it translated, it is translated as Nitzanim niru ba'aretz, so you have buds that are seen in the land. Et hazamir hagia, the song of the nightingale is heard in the land. And even Rashi translates it this way. And we don't have time to talk about the sort of midrashic justification for that translation. And also in most of Western literature, the song of the nightingale is associated with the onset of spring. But purely from a pshat standpoint, and anybody who's actually made wine knows that what the pasuk is actually saying is Anitzanim niru ba'aretz et hazamir igia, you have to prune your vines, right? Like karmecha lo tizmor. That's what it's saying. It makes no sense to talk about nightingales, because in the second you're saying Kol hatur nishma ba'artzenu. Now you're talking about singing birds. So et hazamir is, I mean, at least to me and also to midrashim, quite obviously, at least partially relating to the need to prune vines. Here this is, I don't know if everybody necessarily is aware of this, but you can't make good wine without pruning your vines correctly, right? The whole point of growing a vine, adlaya, is you have to produce as much fruit as close to the roots of the tree as possible. If you just let the vine go as it may, you're not going to make good wine. The vine's going to climb a tree or climb on the ground, and the product is not going to be satisfying at all. I just took my kids to the Israel Museum. There's a huge depiction there in clay of the Assyrian attack on Lachish, and so one of the things they have there are these kerem, and the vines are perfectly pruned. So people a very long time ago understood the importance of pruning vines properly. So et hazamir is at least in part referring to zamir, the pruning of vines. And so now to the midrash. Here's how the midrash understands this pasuk, and here I think it's very interesting. It says, "Igia et hazamir igia azman leIsrael leigael." So הגיע הזמן הגאולה. הגיע הזמן שהעורלה יזמר, לזמור, to cut off the עורלה. הגיע הזמן למצרים שיזמרו. And then afterwards it talks about הגיע הזמן שירה. So it's a progression. It's a very interesting progression. I wanted to focus, and I promise this isn't going to be very long, I wanted to focus on just this idea הגיע הזמן שהעורלה תזמר. Right? So the juxtaposition...
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
The juxtaposition of עורלה and zmira caught my eye as a very interesting thing. Right? So I won't get into necessarily all of the midrashim and the Gemara having to do with עורלה, but they're very, very interesting as well. But if we're talking about Geulah, and Chazal just said this is Igia Zman and Geulah, and then they're talking about Orla and Zmira. So in terms of Geulah, Orla is clearly understood by the Gemara and the Midrash as an impediment. In fact, there's a Gemara that basically says it's Yetzer Hara, it's evil. Right? So, and of course the Midrash says that there are 5 Orlot. One, I think, is fairly famous. We know what it is. Second one is, so there's Ozen, Lashon, Lev. This week's parasha talks about circumcising the heart. That doesn't mean actually a surgical procedure. Also doesn't mean that, Brit Milah can be done virtually or something. What it means is that there's an impediment. Orla, according to Chazal, is some sort of impediment that must be removed. So oral sfatayim, the man is made imperfect, and you have to cut off some sort of part of him that's leading to this imperfection, and then he can be shalem. And this is literally what the Midrash says with Avraham Avinu, that when there was milah, so he was now shalem. So there are 4 orlot for Ben Adam, and there's 1 orla, of course, for trees. You know what that is? And that is also an impediment, right? There's the Netziv says it's a mitzvah, doraita, to remove the orla from vines initially, right? Until the vines, right? Because you're helping the plant grow, you're strengthening it. So orla is essentially an impediment. But what is zmira? Lizmor, when you prune your vines, you're also helping them. As I said, you cannot make good wine without pruning your vines. But I think here it's something very, very different, qualitatively different. And this I was talking about this to Jeremy, and he instantly brought up Bar-Hayim and something that he had said. So when you prune vines, you're cutting off something that's good. When you get rid of orla, you're cutting off something that's bad. When you prune vines, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful plant, tree. It's a very cruel process, cutting off things that are alive. They're natural, they're beautiful, but you can't move forward, you can't make good wine if you don't do that, right? So it's very interesting that Chazal associate that with Geulah, because I think one of the things that it's telling us is that in order to have Geulah, sometimes you have to also prune out some things that are actually good. Right? I remember Rav said in the Shul that you can't have Geulah and Mishna Brura, I think it was, right, at the same time, right? So there's nothing wrong with the Mishna Brura, it's a wonderful thing. But sometimes in order to move forward, you have to be able to judiciously, obviously, prune out some things that are not necessarily bad or even necessarily an impediment. But in order to get to the final product, which is very good, Tov Me'od, and Geulah, you have to nevertheless be able to put them aside so that you can move forward.
Interesting how the removal of any orla requires a lot of skill.
Indeed. Especially the heart one.
According to what you're saying now, the removal of an orla actually requires tremendous expertise. It's not just just go hack away.
Yeah. Well, Zmira as well requires some skill.
Basically pruning the shas.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't do all of it, but he's got it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, thank you for listening, and I hope we merit Geulah very soon. And thanks again, Jeremy, for hosting.
We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. If you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.